This old and cozy attic was built within Final Fantasy XIV's most underrated housing space, an apartment. Often snubbed due to their current size and slot limitations, apartments are seen as a stepping stone in the race to win a bigger and better houses. But today we're going off the beaten path, away from large complicated builds to celebrate an apartment design that embraces a decayed aesthetic, with lots of greenery and plenty of tombs that'll make any bookworm feel right at home. Hello and welcome back, beautiful blooms. My name's Galatinia, and I'll be going over this unique look from floor plan to completion. And I'll throw in some item guides for the more glitch heavy aspects of the build so you can recreate them for your own designs. So let's go! Now I know what you may be thinking. There's not much you can do to change an apartment's shape, so what do you need a floor plan for? That's where you're wrong, my friend. The smaller the space, the more important a cohesive floor plan becomes, because it's vital to make use of every square inch you have, and knowing where you want distinct areas to be in your build will make the entire process that much easier. So, with that being said, the floor plan in this apartment is broken up into 3 key sections. The north wall became the focal point, with a big night sky window and a built-in bed that doubles as a reading nook, which serves to catch your attention the moment you enter the apartment and makes you want to explore further inside. Now the central area is a seating space, and given the decayed aesthetic, there's really not much to this spot other than picking the right furniture pieces to match the theme. I kept it nice and clear for ease of foot traffic. Finally, in the southern third section, there's a small kitchen to the west of the entrance and a big window feature to the east, where there's also a sink. I opted to forego a custom entrance in order to dedicate the majority of the item slots I had to work with into the rest of the space. That being said, I did shrink the dimensions of the apartment with custom walls to make the whole build feel that much more cozy. And speaking of which, what can be cozier than this window bed? It's super simple to make, and there's only 2 items you have to use the float anything glitch for. One of them is the portal partition, which makes the round window shape. It's not floated very high, but just high enough that it'll stay afloat and the bottom can peek over the 2 hanging sideboards that make the windowsill. The greenery is made of 2 wall planters and 1 wall climbing ivy. If the ivy is hung low enough that its central hitbox doesn't overlap the partition wall, then it will not snap to either side of the partition. And that goes for any wall-mounted item, by the way. Finally, the night sky is just the crystal tower phasmoscape slid far enough to the side to hide the tower. Phasmoscapes are your best friends for designing custom windows in apartments and small houses because they provide collision and a lot of custom skybox details in only one item. They're big, so they help fill a lot of space too. I also hid 2 of the new fairy pendant wall lights just behind it to add a soft twinkling star effect, which can be done with the help of the stage panel and a wooden beam. The effect here is much more subtle with the Phasmoscape than it would be if you use this trick with a dyed white screen, but I think that subtlety is better in busy areas like this because it adds a little life to the space without detracting from all the other details. Now the bed itself is just a step bed with 2 floating kitchen cabinets floated backwards to hide the bed's intricate sides, and a set of matching cushions is floated onto the bed with the help of a Riviera bookshelf, as was an open book to help make the space feel more lived in. Both the cushions and the side-tied curtain that help create a sense of privacy are dyed Rotano blue to provide a pop of color that complements all the various wood tones and the bits of reddish pink on the step bed too. Now the inner walls are just 2 mounted bookshelves turned backwards, though be warned, the bookshelves don't have camera collision, so you'll need to put something behind them if you want to keep your camera from zooming out behind all of your furniture. In this case, I have imitation wooden skylights there, as they make up the walls for this build, and the backs of them can be seen here in the front, where you will also see a wooden staircase bookshelf and another mounted bookshelf just facing forward this time. And finally, the one and only other item for the bed that you need to use the float anything glitch for is the Oasis bed that makes the ceiling of this little nook. I left it visible because the bottom textures of the bed actually look really nice and worked for the design. A luminous wooden loft placed above it instead of trying to hide it provides some lighting within the nook and helps close off the gap the bed would have left up top. Trailing vines from a rose trellis turned backwards and pushed into the bookshelf add some greenery and contribute to the reclaimed by nature vibe the whole design exudes. As for the colors used, this was a great time to play with wood tones again, which I was really happy to do, so I'll have a list of dyes up on screen for you to shop for yourself. All the mounted bookshelves and the step bed can't be dyed, but everything else can. The portal wall is bark brown, the Hingen sideboards and kitchen cabinets are loam brown, and the wooden staircase bookshelf is chestnut brown, but do feel free to experiment with different shades. And that is it for the book nook, which comes down to roughly 23 items in this particular variant, 24 if you want to include the tabletop orchestrion like I have here. As we move on to the seating area, I'd like to remind you that if you'd like to see more of my designs and guides, then you should tap the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future projects. Now, while the seating area is relatively simple, there are a couple of tricks I still wanted to touch on. For this apartment, I wanted to create an old attic that's been reclaimed by nature, but is slowly getting used again, which is why I picked pieces like the factory bench and the woodland chair. Yet, if I get my big bouncy hair out of the way, you'll also see some antique wall shelves laying on the floor. Makes it look like some wood dropped down from the ceiling at one point, doesn't it? But that's a wall-mounted item, so how do we get that to lay down on the floor? Easy. With the help of a stage panel and a wooden beam, you can attach the wall shelf as low as it will go on the beam. Then use the stage panel to maneuver it where you want the shelf to lay. Lower the wooden beam to sink the wall shelf into the floor and then detach the shelf. If you want a more detailed guide to floating wall mounted items like this, I'll leave a link to Shay Cloudbank's video that goes over all the controls behind it, even for controller users. It's really easy, I promise. It's worth learning small tricks like this because they go a long way in creating a unique look. As for the rest of the space, the jutting rocks behind the bench is an indoor oriental waterfall turned around, and the climbing vine with the cherry blossom flowers on it is just an eastern canopy bed with a single corner poking through the walls. Which, as I mentioned already, the walls for this build are predominantly made of imitation wooden skylights. I love this item, and that trick I just showed you with the wall shelf, you can use that same crane method to place the wooden skylights backwards to create your own custom cabin walls. And if you're going for a really rustic look, I prefer these over using blank partitions because they can be dyed and their texture is fantastic. And best of all, because they're a wall-mounted item, they offer more design opportunities for apartments that blank partitions can't provide. Let's walk through an example, shall we? We've all been there, right? We see this really cool build on Housing Snap that features a beautiful window and we all want to recreate it until we try to replicate it and realize most of the custom windows we see require having a lower floor to float stuff up from, meaning such designs are gated behind having a house, and that sucks. But don't worry, you can achieve similar looks in your apartment, and I already showed you one of the tricks to get that look where I used Hingen sideboards as the windowsill for the book nook. This second window feature is another. Using that crane method I showed you and the imitation wooden skylights, I used 3 skylights to frame the windowed partition and hide the marble wall that item has. Because the hitboxes for these skylights don't overlap with the wall, they don't snap to the other side of it. For the lower one, you're going to need to use your wooden beam crane to sink it into the floor until it gets to the height you want. Yes, I know, that is so easy to say, wooden beam crane, but we're gonna do it anyway. Unfortunately, you can't use these skylights to hide that top remaining bit of wall above the window because the hitbox will overlap there. So to finish the look, I used the back of 2 wooden cask racks instead. Now keep in mind, you can't dye the cask racks. I found dyeing the imitation wooden skylights loam brown gets you a pretty close match to the cask rack's natural color. Finally, an Earth's Fount Phasmascape provides the illusion of some greenery outside, and an imitation square window hidden behind the Phasmascape gives us sun rays during the morning hours in the game. And all in all, this window only took 9 item slots to make. So it's cheap and you can use it in your own build pretty easily. Next up and across the window is the small kitchenette on the west wall. The base is one southern kitchen with 6 ice boxes dyed cerulean blue to create custom cabinets, and I wanted to bring a bit more of the blue that I had used for the book nook further into the space. Since we currently only have one dye channel in the game, this also allows you to have separate cabinet and countertop colors too. And there's no guarantee we're going to get the dual channel system in furniture, so this is a trick that will still be relevant even after Dawn Trail is released. A glade bookshelf is turned so that its side faces forward and is pushed into the wall, and a company chest is floated up above the southern kitchen and turned backwards for a makeshift vent hood. 2 floating cabinets, one of them turned on its side like you did with the glade bookshelf, make the upper cabinets of the kitchen. Both the cabinets and the bookshelf are also dyed cerulean blue to match the lower ice boxes. And finally, a cask rack is floated above the whole thing to finish the wall and make everything look nice and cohesive. For this particular aesthetic, I've also got some more of the wall climbing ivy trailing down since the kitchen probably hasn't been used in a long time. I don't know, maybe the new resident is making better use of it. And that's everything on the ground. You didn't think all that work went into such tiny spaces, did ya? But I assure you, the devil's in the details, and apartments are honestly one of the best areas in the game for experimental designs like this. Not only do they force you to choose which areas need more item slots than others, but it's actually a little easier to create a cohesive look. Because sometimes we tend to miss the forest for the trees, if you will, when we're trying to fill in bigger spaces. But wait, we're not done yet. To really sell the idea that this was an attic, I wanted to create a custom ceiling around a skylight, which is one of the easier ceiling designs you can work with. A starry sky phasmoscape sits right above the seating area to bathe it in a nice soft light. It's also dyed cobalt brown to blend in with all of the wood tones in the rest of the build and give the illusion that there's a hole in the ceiling. Now, there are better ways to make this look more seamless, and I highly recommend checking out Jelly Panda for that. Their Orbon Ruins build makes me absolutely jealous in the best way possible, so make sure to go give them some love. However, for this build, the item slots need to go elsewhere, so what I've done here was good enough. For the rest of the ceiling, several stage panels were turned backwards and floated up so that their bottoms could be used for rafters. 2 troop stages dyed chestnut brown, and a luminous wooden loft dyed wood brown alongside a single imitation wooden loft angled from the left make the rest of the ceiling and close the space. And hidden up above all that are 2 eastern indoor ponds for camera collision throughout the space, so that once again your camera doesn't go flying through the ceiling when you're spinning around checking everything out. Beyond all those structural details, there's a few aesthetic touches here and there, such as the ivy pendant wall light and my tried and true ivy curtains that I can't seem to get enough of in all of my builds. And all of it came together to create a unique yet cozy space you're not going to find anywhere else. Can you believe this was only done with 100 items? And that's the reason why I really wanted to showcase more apartment builds. It's precisely because I feel like they get overlooked in the 14 community. They never demolish and are a lot cheaper to decorate and maintain than any house in the game. And with the promised item slot increase in Dawn Trail, the benefits of an apartment are only going to get better. Yet until then, you really can do more with 100 item slots than you think. But more importantly, what did you think? Would you like to see more apartment builds too? And what kind? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. If you're hungry for more of my designs, I've got another video up on screen for you to enjoy. Otherwise, until next time, see you then!